Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Shabbos Daf Yud. We're on to Zayin Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. Says the Gemara, V'idach Mahi. We're looking for the rest of the 18 Gzeros, the 18 decrees that were passed by the Talmidim of Shammai and Hillel on that day that they went up to the Aliyah to visit Hananiah ben Chizkiah ben Gorain, who's deeply immersed in deciphering the obscure passages in Sefer Yechezkel, and they concluded with 18 Gzeros. So what else belongs on our list of Gzeros? V'idach Mai. What else is there? Says the Gemara Desnan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Kol HaMetaltalan, all mobile objects, Mevi'in es HaTumah, have the ability to bring over Tumah, Be'oivi HaMardeya, if they have the thickness of a Mardeya. A Mardeya is a goad, a spiked stick which the farmer uses to drive his cattle, and it has a circumference of a tefach. It is not a tefach wide. It has a circumference of a tefach. Therefore, says the Mishnah, any item, any movable item that has that dimension has the ability to bring over tumah from one side of it to the other. Now, the Mishnah here is discussing the halachas of tumas oil. We know, generally speaking, tumas oil can be categorized into 3 sections. Number 1 and number 2 are the most simple forms of tumas oil. For instance, if something hovers directly above a mace, above a dead person, that item or person contracts the tumas mace. It becomes the avatuma due to the fact that he is directly over the mace, and the mace transfers tumah to that thing. Similarly, if the mace hovers above a person or above an item, there too the mace conveys its tumah to that person or that item, and they become tamei with the tumah of av hatumah, a stringent form of tumah. It lasts for 7 days. They need the water from the paraduma. The third form of tumas mace is the airspace, the oyal mace. If there's a roof hanging over a mace, anything within the airspace of that roof, indeed, is makabel. The tumah of the mace becomes an avatuma. So the roof, the oil above the mace, has the ability to convey tumah to anything found underneath, anywhere underneath that roof. Now, how wide must that roof be to constitute a shem oil, to have the legal status of a roof? It needs to be at least a tefach wide, at least a roichav tefach. Says the Mishnah, however, midrabanan, they made a gzera, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel enacted a decree that even if it doesn't have a roichav tefach, if it's not that wide, it's merely ka'oivi hamardeya, it has a circumference of a tefach. Nevertheless, we're concerned that people might confuse the two. They'll say, well, if this thing that has a circumference of a tefach is not an oil, so even if it has a roichav tefach, it's not an oil. Therefore, people might confuse the two, and the Chachamim enacted a gzera that even when it merely has an oivi of tefach, which is the oivi hamardeya, which is the circumference of a tefach, we constitute it to be an oil, we give it a shem oil, and it has the ability to transfer tumah, to convey tumah under its airspace. So if this chayfetz, if this item, this movable item, is partially hovering above a mace, it will transfer the tumas mace to anything found in the airspace of this item, and it becomes tamei with a stringent tumah, becomes an avatuma. So once again, kol hametaltalan, all movables mevi'in es hatumah, if they are hovering above a mace, they are mevi es hatumah, they convey, they transfer the tumah to anything underneath them, to their airspace, as long as they have the width, be'oivi hamardeya, they have the size, the dimension of a mardeya, which is a circumference of a tefach, on account that people might confuse between width and circumference, between roichav and oivi. Amar b'tarfin, it can't be so. He was so disappointed at this halacha. He says this is a distorted halacha. It cannot be that the Chachamim would have entertained such halacha to be concerned that people might confuse between roichav, width, and hekef, and circumference. Certainly there's no room for this. I will cut off my children, I will bury my children. That this is a cut off halacha. Rabbi Tarfon expressed pain at witnessing a neglect of Torah scholarship as expressed in this distorted halacha in his mind. So in his opinion, this was a distorted halacha. It cannot be so. So how then did these words come into being? Says Reb Tarfon, very simple. Somebody misunderstood when he overheard a conversation going on in the Beis Medrash. There was a discussion going on, and somebody misinterpreted the halacha and presented it in the above mentioned fashion, and that's how it ended up being presented in the Mishnah. Says Reb Tarfon, what happened was, Sheshama Shemea, the person overheard the Torah, and he made a mistake. This was the question that was asked in the Beis Medrash regarding a story of a ikar. This is the farmer. Oiver was passing by. Umardeya al Kseifa, he had this mardeya perched on his shoulders. V'iyel sidoi achas ala kever, and indeed this mardeya hovered over the kever. So one side of the mardeya of this pole was positioned over a grave, and the mardeya, on account of it hovering above a mace, becomes tameh, a stringent form of tumah, avatumah. The person touching this mardeya indeed becomes tameh due to the fact that he touched it, avatumah, and he is a rishon l'tumah. Timu oisoi, so they will metame the ikar, the farmer, mishum kelim hama'ahilim ala mace, because he came into contact with a kli, with a utensil that hovered above a mace. So it wasn't that the mardeya was able to transfer the tumas mace to the airspace underneath it, like a din of an oil. Never, because the mardeya is not wide enough to constitute the oil. However, the reason why the ikar became tameh upon carrying this mardeya, which was hovering above a mace, was simply because he touched the mardeya. He is not an avatuma. He doesn't contract the stringent form of tumah from the mace. He's merely a rishon l'tumah, a lenient form of tumah. It's a one day tumah until evening, simply because he touched the mardeya. So the one who overheard this discussion figured it must be that the ikar, the farmer, became tameh on account of tumas oil, because the mardeya transfers the tumas mace to its airspace, and it got transferred to the farmer who was carrying this mardeya on his shoulders. Although the mardeya, it does not have a roichav tefach, it was merely a hekef tefach, a circumference of a tefach. Nevertheless, we see that an item has the ability to transfer tumah even in this scenario. And this was his mistake. Reb Tarfon maintained that this was an erroneous conclusion based upon overhearing a conversation in Beis HaMedrash. But certainly the Chacham never enacted this ksera. There was never a decree upon an item which is merely hekef tefach, a circumference of a tefach, to have the ability to transfer tumah like an ordinary oil. Never. Continues the Mishnah. Amar Reb Akiva, so Reb Akiva responds, Ani yasaken, I will amend, I will correct, I will explain the words of the Chachamim, the words of the Tanakama, sheyu divrei Chacham chayamim, that the words of our sages should stand correct. Indeed, I agree with you that generally speaking, there's no room for concern that one might confuse roichav with hekef with circumference. Generally speaking, the only time something constitutes a shem oil, has a status of a roof, is only if it has a roichav tefach, if it is wide a tefach. If it is merely hekef tefach, has a circumference of a tefach, certainly does not have a shem oil. However, in specific situations, indeed, there was room for exera, for concern that a person may confuse the two things. What situation are we speaking about? Says Reb Akiva. For instance, if the person was carrying the item which had a hekef tefach, which had a circumference of tefach, that item was leaning over a mace. As a result, the person as well becomes tameh due to the fact that he touched this item. So once again, the item becomes a stringent form of tumah due to the fact that it is hovering above a mace. Now the person carrying this item, he, strictly speaking, should only be a rishon l'tumah, since he merely came into contact with the mardeya, which is avatuma. However, says Reb Akiva, once you go ahead and you are metame this person, perhaps the person will not be so learned, and he'll come to the erroneous conclusion that, you know why I'm tame? I'm not tame because I merely touched the mardeya, and I'm a rishon l'tumah as a result. You know why I'm a rishon l'tumah? Because the mardeya is an oil. Why is it an oil? Because look, it has the proper dimensions. It has a circumference of a tefach, has a din oil, and has the ability to transfer tumah to its airspace. I'm in the airspace of the mardeya. I'm in the airspace of this item, which has a hekev of tefach, and therefore I'm tummy. Now, why am I only tummy a rishon l'tumah? Apparently, oil doesn't have the ability to be metame more than that. So come to the erroneous, mistaken conclusion that every oil in the world, be it a humongous oil, a bona fide legally status oil, even if it's a very wide oil, it only has the ability to transfer a very limited form of tumah, to transfer only a lenient tumah, a rishon l'tumah, to its airspace. Therefore, the Chachamim in this case were concerned that a person may confuse width with circumference. He'll say, well, I'm tameh. It must be because the item which has the circumference of a tefach has an oil. And why am I only tameh rishon l'tumah? Apparently, an oil never has the ability, it even has the legal status of an oil, to transfer more than a rishon l'tumah. So therefore, Chacham in this case enacted their gzeira. But generally speaking, you're right. Ordinarily, certainly, we require the oil to have the width, to have the reichav of tefach. A person generally will not confuse the two things. It's only in this specific case for a specific purpose. Once again, Amar Bakiva, Ani Yasakin, I will amend and correct and explain Sheyiu Divrei Chachamim Kayam, that the words of the Chachamim, that indeed there was a gzeira applied that an item which merely has a hekev of tefach is considered to be an oil and has the ability to transfer tumah to its airspace. I will explain why that is so. It is merely in this specific case, sheyiyu kol metaltalin, all movable objects, should have the ability to transfer and convey mevinas atuma ala adam shenoisan, ala adam shenoisi oisan ba'ivim ardei, only to the person carrying them. When these items have a circumference of a tefach, they have the dimensions of a mardeya. And for the reason we mentioned, because since the person is going to become tamei, truthfully it's because he's touching the mardeya. So he's going to become tamei, and only a tamei rishon l'tumah. He's going to erroneously conclude that it's due to the fact that this item has the status of an oil. And apparently an oil can only make a rishon l'tumah. Therefore the Chachamim decided that this specific case deserves a gzeira, and indeed, he becomes a more stringent form of tumah. He becomes an avla tumah. We consider this item which has the hekif of a tefach, we consider as though it's a true oil, and the person carrying it is an avla tumah. So it's strictly in this case. Continues Rekiva, well, if an item hovers above a mace, surely it becomes tamei, because it hovered above the mace, even if it's very narrow. Regardless of its size, there's no requirement of tefach regarding the tumah arriving to the item which is hovering directly above the mace. The mace transfers tumah to anything directly in its path. However, to constitute a true oil, to be considered an oil to the effect that if this item is hovering above a mace, and we wanted to convey tumah, to transfer tumah to its entire airspace, not speaking about a case where a person is carrying it, but generally speaking, if there's an item suspended above a mace, in that case, certainly I agree with you, Rabbi Tarfon. In order for the item to be considered an oil, and to be matame anything within its airspace, then certainly it needs to be a tefach wide. Concludes the Gemara. We spoke about Oivi HaMardeya. What is Oivi HaMardeya? V'Rabbi Mardeya she'amru ein ba'avi tefach. It's not wide a tefach. V'yesh be'keifei tefach, but it has a circumference of a tefach. V'gazru ala keifei mishum aviyoi, and indeed the Chacham applied gzeira on account that a person may confuse the two things. He may confuse the two dimensions. He may mix up width with circumference. And according to Bakiva, it was only applied in a specific case where indeed there's grounds, there's reason to believe that a person may come to that erroneous conclusion. So in summary, what is the halacha of metaltalin? Mevi'in tuma, they are maybe tumas meis. So al atzman, on themselves, if they are hovering above the mace, regardless of their size, even kolshu will become tamei, a stringent form of tuma and avatuma. Now, to make them into a din oil, to transfer tuma to their airspace, I mean matame, a person or kalim that are found on the other side, underneath this object, that's only if they constitute a shem oil, if they have a din of an oil, and that is only if they're wide tefach. If a person is carrying this chayfetz, in that case the chachamim applied gzeira, and even if it's merely hekefoi tefach, has a circumference of a tefach, that is oivei mardeya. Since a person might erroneously conclude that a oil which transfers tumah can only transfer a lenient form of tumah, look, the fact is that I'm carrying this mardeya, I'm tamei as a result, and I'm only tamei rishon l'tumah. He won't understand it's because he came into contact with the mardeya, which is an avatumah, because it is an oil, because it hovered above the mace. He'll think that the mardeya has the ability not only to be matame itself, but to transfer tumah to anything underneath, its airspace underneath the kli. And he'll conclude that the reason why he's a rishon l'tumah is because the oil has only a limited ability to transfer lenient forms of tumah. And any oil in the world will only have that ability. Therefore the chachamim applied gzeira here and made him into a avatuma. They constituted this item which has hekef tefach, a circumference of a tefach, they gave it a din of an oil. Okay, but Rav Tarfon disagrees with this. He holds this was not gzeira amongst the 18 gzeiras. Says the Gemara, if so, Rav Tarfon is missing one of the 18 gzeiras. Says the Gemara inside the Rav Tarfon, the Amar, he said, it can't be. This halacha is a distorted halacha. Basralu, if so, we're missing one of the 18 gzeiras. Amar Nachman Yitzchak, he'll substitute it with another one. Afbnois kusim, nidois marisasan, boy beim gazru. According to Rav Tarfon, we'll substitute this gzeira with another gzeira. The gzeira of bnois kusim. The kusim were a group of people who converted, and their gerus was questionable. They certainly weren't too careful with many halachas in the Torah. One of those halachas was regarding the hilchas nida, that we know even an isha 1 day old can become tamei nida. They didn't subscribe to this halacha, and therefore the chacham applied a gzeira even to their small children, even to a 1 day old baby, even to a b'nois kusim me'arisasin in their cradle. They're considered to be tamei nida, and that was a gzeira which was enacted on that day. So this gzeira will take the place of the gzeira of the metaltal mevinas hatuma, which according to Rav Tarfon never happened. Again, of b'nois kusim, the daughters of kusim nidas marisasin have a status of nidas even from their cradle. Boy b'yoyim gazru, on that day was enacted. Ub'idach, says more regarding the other gzeira of meniach kelim tachas atzinor, sviler Rav Meir, who will subscribe to Rav Meir's opinion that too was part of the list. Therefore, according to Rav Tarfon, nothing's missing. We have the gzeira of kelim tachas atzinor, unlike Rav Yossi, who we learned yesterday, disagreed with that gzeira as well. According to Rav Tarfon, that was indeed one of the gzeiras. So he has that. And in addition, he has the gzeira of b'neis kusim, which will substitute for the gzeira of the metaltalin. Continues the Gemara, okay, what else is on the list of the 18 gzeiras? V'idach haboitzer lagas, if one harvests his grapes to press them in the wine press, and the grapes exuded some liquid, some grape juice, and they were contained in these perforated baskets, so the juice is actually being wasted. It's going li'ibud. It's not being contained in the baskets. He has no use for it. He's not pleased with their presence. He's not being machshav this juice. He's not giving it any significance. Now we know that in order for liquids to have the ability to enable produce to be susceptible to be makabel tumah, a produce is not susceptible, is not able to contract tumah unless it's hukshar, it's prepared for it. It's unable to be makabel tumah. That happens when it becomes moist through one of these 7 liquids. Now we need that the 7 liquids should have significance in order for them to be considered a din of liquid. Only then do they have the ability to impose hechsher on fruits. In order for us to give significance to the liquid, the person needs to be machshav it. He needs to intend to have the kavanah to use it for a certain purpose. He wants it, he needs it, he gives it chashivas. Only in that case is a liquid machsher fruit and makes him susceptible to be makabel tumah. In this case, he has these baskets of grapes on the way to the wine press. The baskets are perforated, the juice is leaking out. He has no point and purpose, no benefit for the grape juice contained within. In this case, minat Torah, the grape juice has no chashivas, no significance, it's not considered to be a mashke, and has no ability to be machshir the grapes. Nevertheless, says the Gemara, this was one of those 18 gzeros. The Chacham endowed prominence and significance to the juice within these baskets, and since the grapes became moist as a result of this juice, the grapes become hukshar, susceptible to receive tumah. The Gemara soon will explain the reason for this gzera. Again, v'idach, what else do we have? Habaytzel lagas, one who harvests grapes in perforated baskets for the wine press. Shamay mehukshar, they become hukshar, they become susceptible to become tumah. Hilay meloyuchshar, the grapes do not become hukshar because the juice is insignificant, it doesn't have a shem mashke. I don't understand. Why do you differentiate and say, do you insist that one should harvest his grapes b'tahar, impurity, because otherwise the grapes can become tumah due to the fact that they are moist as a result of this grape juice. So you insist that one harvests his grapes b'tahar. However, when it comes to olives, you're not so particular. With regards to harvesting olives, there you're not concerned that the olives will become hushal kabel tumah on account of the juice that exudes from the olives, and therefore you don't insist that the harvesting be done b'tahara impurity. So what is the difference between the two? Amarle, so Shammai responded, if you'll provoke me, go Israeli tumah aval masika. Indeed, I will apply a tumah even to olives. Now, indeed, what is the difference between the two? Why do olives not become hukshar on account of the juice which exudes from the olives? So Taisa explains that this juice is called moyal, and certainly it is not considered to be mashke, and does not have a din of mashke which can be machshir the olives. Therefore, with regard to olives, there's no concern. It is only regarding the grapes that Shammai imposed the gzera. Okay, so what happened next? They took a roll call. They wanted to take account how many subscribed to Shammai's opinion and how many to Hillel's opinion. So what did they do? They stuck a sword down in the Beis HaMedrash. Amr, they said, whoever wants to come in, come in. However, nobody can go out until we take count. And indeed, the opinion of Shammai prevailed and triumphed over Hillel's opinion. And he submitted to Shammai. Hillel kafaf. Shammai, Hillel, who was actually the Nasi, sat bent over in submission in front of Shammai, like one of the students. And this was very difficult. This scene was terrible, and it was difficult to Klal Yisrael to see their Nasi in a state of humiliation. It was difficult, like the day that the Egel was formed. What is the connection between the two? Explains the Chassam Sofer. A group of people rallied around Shammai and his opinion, and they didn't pay much attention. They didn't pay enough attention to Hillel's opinion. They triumphed over Hillel, and he became humiliated as a result. Regarding the Egel, we find a similar phenomenon. The Klal Yisrael did not pay enough attention to the protests which were being expressed by Aaron and Chur, that they do not proceed with the Egel, and look what happened as a result. So here too, had they paid more attention to Hillel, perhaps he wouldn't have come to the state of humiliation. Okay, says the Gemara, "V'gazer Shammai v'Hillel v'lekibul minayu." So Shammai v'Hillel wanted to pass this gzeira regarding the grapes that were harvested, but it wasn't accepted by the public, and we know that a gzeira which is not accepted doesn't have a legal validity. However, later on, Vasa Tamadayu, their students, on that day, when they were up in the Aliyah, Gazer, they passed this Gzera, V'kibul Minayu, and in fact, it was accepted. My time, okay, so what is the reason for this Gzera? Once again, we're speaking about the grapes that were harvested for pressing in the wine press. They became moist as a result of the juice exuding from the grapes, which were not l'ratzain. The person doesn't have any purpose, doesn't have any need, any benefit from this juice. The juice should not be considered to be in a state of mashkin because it has no significance and has no power to be machshir those grapes to enable them, to make them susceptible to Mikabel Tumah. So why indeed was there a gzera to this effect that the juice does have a din of mashkin, does have the ability to be machshir the fruit? My time. Because perhaps he's going to harvest the grapes in baskets which are tamei, and in that case, the fact that the baskets are tamei and convey tumah to the juice, that already gives it significance. The fact that it is becoming tamei, the fact that the baskets are conveying tumah to the juice, that gives it chashivas. The fact that it's getting tumah, that itself endows it with prominence. And therefore, even though the person doesn't need it, for the person, this juice has no significance. The fact that it is getting the tumah, that gives it prominence, that gives it chashivas. That's a significant factor that endows it with prominence. And therefore, this juice indeed has the ability to be machshir the grapes. So the chashash is, the concern is, the gzeira is that perhaps a different time he's going to use baskets that are tamei, which indeed endow the juice with prominence and significance and give them a teres mashke. Therefore, the Chachamim applied a general gzeira to every time when a person harvests within baskets, even when they're tar, that the juice has a din mashke. Says, okay, hanich lamanda amar. This works well according to the opinion that holds indeed that kli tamei chayshiv mashkin. Shaper, this will be good. That a kli tamei is machshav, gives significance to the juice. Elamand amar, according to the other opinion, disagrees with this concept. En kli tamei chayshiv mashkin. We don't have such a phenomenon. There's no such a thing. Kli tamei doesn't endow the juice with significance. Michael and Meimar. If so, the whole basis for the gzera is non-existent. Elam aziri, for a different reason. Elam azir chanina gzera. The concern was shama yivtzurena bekufos mizufafes. Perhaps he's going to harvest the grapes into kupos, baskets which are lined with pitch, which are waterproof. In that case, certainly, the owner wants the mashkin, he wants the juice, because it's going to be contained in his baskets. He's going to have use for it. He's going to derive benefit from the grape juice. In this case, it certainly has a din of mashkin. So Chacham applied a din of mashkin to any basket, even if it is not waterproof. Rava Amar, Gzeira b'shema noishches. The concern is perhaps that the clusters of grapes will cling together, and when he's going to try separating them, inevitably the force will cause some grapes to exude some of the juice. In that case, the juice indeed has a teres mashkin, has a din of liquid. Why? Because since the act of separating the clusters leads to an inevitable consequence of some juice oozing out, that is the din of psikresha, an inevitable consequence. Like the Gemara brings a mashal from psikresha l'yamas, you chop off the head of a chicken, you don't expect it to die. Certainly, it's an inevitable consequence of your act, even if you had no kavanah, you had no intention to kill the bird. But your intention for the primary act covers the inevitable secondary consequence. It's considered as though you had intention of killing the bird when you chop off his head. Here too, since he intends on separating these clusters which carry an inevitable consequence of some juice oozing out, his intent applies to this consequence as well, and his machshava for the primary act, it influences the secondary act as well, and it is considered as though he's being machshav this juice, he's giving significance to this juice, and it has a din mashkin and can indeed do hechsher on the fruit. So again, the gzera, when one harvests the grapes in the baskets, is upon the concern, based on the chashash, that perhaps sometimes he's going to separate the clusters, which will result in some juice, and that juice has a din mashkin, and when that moisturizes the fruit, and indeed is being machsher the fruit to be mekabel tumah, therefore the Chacham applied this gzera all over. Whenever we have grapes which are wet, from the grape juice which oozes out of the grapes in these baskets, they have a din of mashkin and can be machsher. Finally, we have another reason, of Nachman or Ravua. The gzera was based on a different concern. Sometimes a person goes to his vineyard, Leda, and he wants to make a test, Leda, to determine, to see whether his grapes have come to the point of ripeness, that they're suitable for pressing. So what is his test? So he takes a cluster of grapes and squeezes them, and the juice drips on the other grapes. Now at this point in time, there's no harm, because when something is still mechubar, attached to the ground, it certainly cannot become hukshar. It's not susceptible for tumah, because otherwise every fruit attached to a tree will always be hukshar as a result of the rain. So certainly one which is mechubar does not become hukshar. However, we're concerned that a couple of minutes later, when he plucks the grapes off the vine, he'll still have some of this moisture that was oozed on the grape as a result of this person squeezing. Since that juice came about through his ma'aseh, it has a din of mashkin and can be machsher the grapes that are now plucked from the vine. Uvishas betzira, at the time of harvesting, adayin mashka teifeach, the moist juice, the wet juice, is still aleim, present on them, and indeed provides hechsher l'tumah for the juice, for the fruit. Therefore, for chashash of this scenario, the Chacham said that anytime we have the grapes which are moisturized by the grape juice in the basket, they indeed have a din of hechsher l'kabel tumah. So in summary, we learned about another gzera. If a person harvests the grapes to bring them to the wine press, the Chacham said that the grapes become hukshar, become susceptible to mekabel tumah, on account of the fact that they have the moisture of the grape juice which oozed out when they were in the baskets. And what is the reason for this gzera? We have 4 reasons in the Gemara. We are chayshish for kupais tmeyas, for baskets which are tamei. In that case, the tumah is machshiv, the juice gives it a teres mashkin, and they have the ability to be machshiv the fruit. The Gemara told us about a chashash of kufais mizufafais, pitch-lined baskets which are waterproof. In that case, certainly the owner is pleased with the juice that is present there. He wants it. He intends to use it. And therefore, in that case, certainly the juice has a din mashkin and can be machshir the grapes. So concerned about that case, the Gemara told us about gzeira mishama noishches. Perhaps the person will, in the process of separating the clusters of grapes, will squeeze out some juice, and that juice has a din of mashkin. Finally, because of the person that will do a test on his grapes, he'll be soichet, he'll squeeze out some of the grapes to see whether indeed it has come to the point of harvesting for pressing. This juice that oozes out certainly has a din mashkin and can be mashal the fruit. So on account of these chashashes, of these concerns, of these scenarios, Chacham applied a general gzera to all grapes which were harvested in these baskets on the way to the wine press. They are moist due to the fact that there is the juice present on them. Although this juice is shalei l'ratzain, because it is going to be dripping out of the baskets, nevertheless they have a din mashkin on account of these concerns mentioned in the Gemara. Continues the Gemara v'idach, and what is another gzera on the list? Amar Tavi Rishpa, Tavi the animal trapper, he said in the name of Shmuel, Amar Tavi Rishpa, Amar Shmuel, Af gidule truma, bay bayayim gazru. Also, the halacha that if one plants truma in the ground, the subsequent growth has a din of truma, as Rashi stresses, even if we're speaking about planting a seed which disintegrates, fully disintegrates in the ground like tvua and kitnis, like grains and beans. Even in that case, if one plants truma, the resulting growth has the din of truma, even though minat Torah that is not so, because the truma becomes nullified, becomes batal on the ground. Nevertheless, the Chacham applied a gzera that gidule truma, growth from truma that was planted has a din of truma. Again, af gidule truma boy bayim gazru. My time, what was the reason for this gzera? Amar Chanina, gzera. We're concerned misham truma Torah bad Yisrael. A Yisrael will have truma Torah, and perhaps he's going to want to deprive the kohen of his dues. Instead of giving to the kohen, he'll go ahead and plant it and use the growth for himself. Therefore, the Chachamim want to avoid this practice, and they declared that anybody who plants truma, instead of giving it to the kohen, the resulting growth is not chulin. You may not eat it. You have to go ahead and give it over, forward it to the kohen. So you will not have gained anything. Amar Rava, that can't be the case. We don't suspect that a Yisrael will try to jip the kohen of his dues. If you're concerned, you suspect that a Yisrael will try to deprive the kohen of his share, he has a more simple solution to avoid giving truma to the kohen. He doesn't have to be mafresh to begin with. Why? Given the efshel lemevet chita achas, because there's a very simple approach to truma. If one doesn't want to give the kohen his dues, he merely follows the minimum share min haTorah, which is merely one chita. He can only be mafresh one chita, one kernel of wheat from his entire pile, and by doing so, he was yaitse his chiyuv min haTorah. Shmuel told us that min haTorah, biblically speaking, one is only obligated to remove one kernel from his entire pile. So if one is looking to deprive the kohen of his share, he has a more direct, simple solution. Don't be mafresh more than one chita. So apparently, we don't suspect that Yisrael is trying to deprive the kohen of his share by planting the truma. Therefore, it can't be that the Chachamim would enact a gzera based on such a concern. Again, Amar Ravi dechashidi lach, if you're concerned, if you suspect that Yisrael will do this and deprive the kohen of his share, then to begin with, he wouldn't have separated the truma on such a large quantity. He would have simply done, he could simply do the simple eitzah, simple solution of doing one chita, shmol toras. V'laika of it. But indeed, he hasn't done so. You see that he's separated a large quantity of truma. So apparently he's not trying to deprive the kohen of his share. He muni mehemni. So apparently he is believed, he is trusted that he's doing it in good faith. And he had no intention of depriving the kohen of his truma. For some reason it got planted, and there's no reason to apply a gzera in this case. So why then did the Chachamim enact this gzera that giduli truma, growth of truma, has a din of truma? It's for an entirely different reason. Not I'm concerned that Yisrael will try to deprive the kohen of his due. Elo gzera mishum truma tmeya biat kohen. Perhaps the kohen will have truma that became tamei. He can't eat it. So he has a interesting solution. He says, you know what, I'll take this truma tmeya, I'll save it until the seeding season, I'll plant it in the ground, and I'll enjoy the growth, the subsequent growth will not have a din of truma tmeya, and I'll be able to eat it. So what's wrong with that? It's a good calculation. Something which is tamei, which is planted in the ground, certainly loses its status of tumah. Says the Gemara, however, dilma mashi lagabe, perhaps he'll hold on to it until the sowing season comes along, but asli takala, and he'll come to transgress, perhaps he'll mistakenly eat it. Therefore the Chacham concerned for such a scenario, and they wanted to dissuade the kohen from this type of practice, and therefore they said, if you plant truma, if you plant, for instance, truma tmeya, then the growth will have a din of truma tmeya. But at the same time, they didn't want to differentiate between different cases, and they said, blanket statement, any growth of truma has a din of truma. So if you plant the truma Torah, the growth has a din of truma Torah. If you plant the truma tmeya, then the growth has a din of truma tmeya. V'idach, what else is on our list of 18 gzeros? Amar Abchia B'Amir Shnei Af, also the following halacha. One who is traveling on the road and he encounters darkness, the onset of Shabbos. They passed a decree, a gzera, that he's meant to pass his pouch over to the non-Jew to carry it for him. Because the Chachamim knew that a person will not face the loss of his fortune, and he will come to do a malacha d'oraisa by carrying his pouch in Rishus Rabbim. Therefore the Chachamim made an exception to the universal Isser of Amir al-Akum. One is not meant to use the services of a goy to do malachim on Shabbos, but in this case, they allowed it and they decreed that a person should do it. As Rashi explains, there's really another option here. A person could really carry less than 4 amos at a time. The malach of carrying an item which is surrounded only applies to a shear of 4 amos. If one was to choose to carry in increments of less than 4 amos, carry 3 amos, pause for a rest, carry another 3 amos, that is not also in our Torah. However, the Rabbanan said that might lead one to doing a malacha d'oraisa. He may continue carrying the full shear of 4 amos. Therefore, the Chacham prohibited that. He did not allow, even in this case, of one who encounters darkness at night. Don't use that option. Even though that's only the Rabbanan, and using the services of a goy is only the Rabbanan, we opt using the services of a goy rather than the eitzah of going less than 3 amos at a time, because that carries a real concern that it might lead to a malacha d'oraisa. So the gzera was twofold. Don't carry less than 3 amos, but rather do hand it over to the nachri. Continues Gemara v'idach. What was the final and last gzera to complete our list of 18 gzeras? Omar Bali, Omar Avimi Sanvasa. This is the name of his town. He came from the town of Sanvasa. What was the final gzera? Piton v'shamnon, non-Jewish bread, non-Jewish oil, v'yenon and their wine, ubnei sein and their daughters, kular miyut ches davarhein. They all are considered to be the final one of the 18 gzeras. As Rashi explains, they're all bundled into one because they're all interrelated, interconnected, as the Gemara soon will explain. Now, Rashi Taisus both point out, what does it mean that bnei sein, their daughters, is a gzera? It's an issa d'Rabbanan. It is minat Torah. It is biblically prohibited to intermarry. However, Taisus brings the Gemara Zara that when we speak about bnei sein in this context, it's referring to issa yichud. Even seclusion with bnei sein is also. Okay, so we've come to our final gzera, and we've completed our list of 18 gzeras. Says Gemara Hanicha, the Rav Meir. This works well according to Rav Meir, who also included the gzera of meniach kelim tachsatzina, one who puts a vessel under the pipe and collects the rainwater. According to Rav Meir, that was one of the 18 gzeras, and indeed we have a complete list of 18 gzeras. Ella the Rabbi Yossi, who disputed that, who held that wasn't one of the 18 gzeras. If so, we're missing one. Shiv Suri Havin, we only have a total of 17. Says Gemara, Ika Hadar of Achabar Ada. We have another one to add the name of Achabar Ada, and that will be the 18th one according to Rabbi Yossi. But first the Gemara will go and explain back this gzera of Pitan v'Shamna v'Yena, and then the Gemara will proceed and tell us this additional gzera, which according to Rabbi Yossi is the 18th one. Says the Gemara, the Omar of Achabar Ada, Omar Bitzchak, Gazru al Pitan v'Shem Shamna. What was the reason? What indeed was the tam for the gzera of Pitan, Shamnon, Yenan, Mesein? So he explains, Gazru al Pitan v'Shem Shamnon. They made a gzera on non-Jewish bread on account that it might lead to consuming their oil as well. V'al Shamnon v'Shem Yenan. The Isra on their oil is for the concern that it might lead one to consume their wine. Says Gemara, so you mean to say that shemen is more severe than bread? The reason why there's an Isra on bread, because it might lead to oil. Apparently oil is a more fitting candidate for gzera than bread. Al pita mishum shamnon, says the Gemara. My umid is shemen and pas. Why is shemen more severe than pas? Ella, you must say as follows. Reinterpret it. Gazru al pita v'shamnon mishum yenon. That the gzera on their bread and oil was indeed on an equal level, equal footing, and those two were prohibited because it might lead, mishum yenon, might lead to consuming their wine, which indeed is more severe, because it is drunk at social gatherings, it leads to frivolity. V'al yenon, why is wine also indeed? Mishum nesein, because it will lead to yichud with their daughters. Taisus points out that the Isra on wine is more severe, more stringent than merely bread and oil. We know that the Isra of yenon is also asr bahana. One may not only drink it, but one may not even derive benefit from it. Taisus explains because it was the regilus, was they're accustomed to pour their wine before that by the zara. So therefore, since the Chacham already prohibited the wine on account of the tam of bnei sein, which is stated here, so the Chacham applied to it a more stringent Isser, even an Isser no, on account of the additional reason, perhaps that it was poured in front of the Avodah Zarah. Finally, says the Gemara, "V'al bnei sein Why the Isra of Yichud with their daughters, Mishum Davar Achar? Because it might lead to Avodah Zarah. Continues the Gemara. Va'al Davar Achar Mishum Davar Achar. So this was the additional Gzeira, which was reckoned, according to Rav Yosi, as the 18th Gzeira. So they made an Isra on Davar Achar, another item, Mishum Davar Achar, because it might lead to something else. So well, what are we speaking about? My Davar Achar. What was the additional Gzeira? Amar Nachmar Yitzchak Gazru al Tinei Knachri. They applied a Gzeira, they imposed a Gzeira on even a small non-Jewish child, Shematame Beziva, that has the status of a Zav, and he's Matame. Why? So this was the Davar Achar, that they made a Gzeira on a Tinei Knachri, that he should have a din of a Zav, and this was Mishum Davar Achar, because it may lead to another pitfall. What was that? There's a concern, Shelo Yetinek Yisrael Ragel Esle, B'mishkav Zachar. They made him into a Zav, so that subsequently a Jewish child would not find himself, would not associate with this Goyish child, not want to become Tameh. And therefore, this will prevent from coming L'dei Mishkav Zachar, will not result in having relations with these Goyish children, Goyish boys. So this was the additional Gzeira, according to Rav Yosi, which concluded the 18 Gzeiras. Says Mari Hachi. So if we'll count this one in, the Rameh Nami Tishri Havin. If so, according to Rameh, we have another one. We end up with 19. Says the Gemara, we must abridge one of those Gzeiras. We had a list of Gzeiras regarding Truma, that the Chachamim imposed a din of Sheni L'Tumah in many situations, in various scenarios, and two of those mentioned were Oichlim that became Tameh through Mashkim. The Oichlim have a din of Sheni L'Tumah, and Kalim, vessels that became Tameh Mashkim, they too have a din of Sheni L'Tumah. Says the Gemara, maybe we'll abridge them. We'll combine them into one. They're all considered to be one Gzeira. If so, we are left with a total of 18. Concludes the Gemara, Oichlim v'Kalim Shenitu Mashkin, that counted merely as one Gzeira. Therefore, according to Rameh as well, even if we factor in this last Gzeira of a Tinei Knachri, we will have a total of merely 18 Gzeiras. So in summary, we learned today regarding the final 6 Gzeiras, which concluded our list of 18 Gzeiras, as follows. So we began with the halacha of Ein Poilin Lo Yaner. One may not cleanse his garments from lice in front of a lamp. Ein Kirin Lo Yaner. One may not read in front of the lamp for fear that he might adjust the lamp. The Gemara presented us with various scenarios where the Chachamim imposed a din of Sheni L'Tumah. And if he's to come into contact with Truma, he's Paisal Truma. What are they? If a person eats food which is Tameh, which is a Rishon L'Tumah, or food which is a Sheni L'Tumah, or drinks Mashkin Tmeim, he becomes a Sheni L'Tumah. A Tful Yom, a person who was Tameh and immersed in a mikveh, and on that same day he took a bath, he was Ba Rosh V'Ruba into Mayim Shuvim. Or a Tar, an ordinary person, Shenaflu Olav, Gimel Lugim Mayim Shuvim, 3 lugim of Mayim Shuvim were poured on him, on his Rosh V'Ruba. So these two people have a din of Sheni L'Tumah. Sefer, a scroll, hands that weren't rinsed, Oichlin, food that was Nitma B'Mashkin, or Kalim that became Tameh through Mashkin, according to our mayor. These last 2 items are combined into one Gzeira. Maniach Kalim Tachas Hatzina, one places Kalim under the pipe to collect, and it collects rainwater. It has a din of Mayim Shuvim. According to Rav Yosi, that was not one of the Gzeiras. But Nois Kusim, even young daughters of the Kusim have a din of Nida, even if they're still in their cradle. Today we added the last and final 6 Gzeiros. Mevi'in Tuma B'Ivamardeya. If a person is carrying a object which has a circumference of a Mardeya, which is a Tefach, it has the ability to transfer Tumas Meis to the person who's carrying it. According to Rav Tarfon, that is not the case. We proceeded with the case of Boitzer Legas Huchshar. A person harvests the grapes and they are moist due to the grape juice which is found on them. That juice has significance and can be machsha the grapes. We learned if one plants truma, the growth has a din of truma as well. We learned about noisin kisel nachri. One should pass on his pouch to the non-Jew. We learned about piton, the non-Jewish bread, oil, wine, and daughters are usher. And finally, the tinei knachri has a din of a zav. So although we find some differences in how to calculate the 18 Gzeiros, at the end of the day, we have a total of exactly 18 Gzeiros, no more, no less. those gzeres which were passed, which were decreed up in the Aliyah, when Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel went to visit Hananiah ben Chizkiah ben Garin. Continues the Mishnah, Beis Shammai Oimrim. So Beis Shammai maintain that there's a halacha of shvisas kelim on Shabbos. Just as one is meant to rest himself on Shabbos, not do malacha with his animals on Shabbos, he can't even have his kelim do malacha for him on Shabbos. Beis Shammai Oimrim, ein sheirin, one may not soak joy, the ingredients to make ink, v'samanim, the ingredients to make dye. V'karshini, may not soak his beans, because these entail a malacha, they turn into some form of glob, which is a malacha of lisha, of kneading. So he may not do so, ella, unless the process is finished before Shabbos arrives. Ella kadei she'yisherim b'yidayim, unless they're fully finished b'yidayim while it's still day. Beis Hillel matir, Beis Hillel maintain that it's no problem, even if the process is completed on Shabbos, that too is okay. Beis Shammai Oimrim, ein noisin unishal pishtam, we may not place bundles of flax, let's say chatana, into the oven. They used to put it there to heat up and get white. So one may not do so, ella, unless unless they warm up while it's still day. You may not place the wool into the vat to get dyed. Ella, unless unless it absorbs the color while it's still Erev Shabbos. Beis Hillel matir. Beis Shammai Oimrim, a person one may not spread out, set up the mitzulis, the traps, chaya, va'ifes, v'dogim, ella, unless kadeshi yitzoidim b'yidayim, unless they trap while it's still Erev Shabbos. Beis Hillel matir. Now the mission will proceed to a different topic. Beis Shammai Oimrim, a moich l'nachri, one may not sell an item to a guy, ve'in toinen imay, he may not load up with him on his donkey, ve'imach bin olav, or load on the guy himself, unless unless we know that he's going to arrive at his destination prior to Shabbos. Beis Hillel matir. Beis Shammai Oimrim, ein noisin oiros la'abda, one may not give hides to the tanner, v'lei kelim, or garments l'kovis nachri, to the non-Jewish laundromat, ella kadei sheyasum b'yidayim, unless they complete their malacha before Shabbos. Ubekulan, in all these cases, Beis Hillel matirin im hashemesh, Beis Hillel allow, unless provided that the sun is still up, the sun is still shining, as long as it's still before Shabbos, one may hand over the laundry to the laundromat, etc. In the family, my father's home, they were machmer like Beis Shammai. And in fact, regarding white garments, which entails a greater effort to clean them, it takes longer. So they used to give it l'koivas nachri, 3 days before Shabbos, to ensure that they would complete their work before Shabbos. Concludes the Mishnah. V'shav and Elu all agree, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel both agree, she'toyanin kuris Beis Habad, one may place the beam of the Beis Habad on top of the olives in the olive press to expedite the flow of the oil from the olives. V'igulei agas, and the round planks of wood on top of the grapes to expedite the flow of the juice coming out of the grapes in the gas, in the wine press. Rashi explains, since their custom was to grind the olives before placing this heavy beam on them, to crush the grapes prior to placing the round planks on them. So from here on in, there's no malacha d'oraisa involved, because the malacha of pressing olives and grapes is a malacha of disha, of separating something from its natural moorings. But in the case where it was already crushed or ground before Shabbos, the juice was already separated from its natural moorings, and now placement of the beam and the round planks does not constitute malacha d'oraisa, since it's merely expediting the flow, the exuding of the juice from the olives and grapes, and therefore, since it doesn't involve malacha d'oraisa, all agree, even Beis Shammai agree, that this can take place on Shabbos. It is not considered to be a lack of shvisas kelim, being that his utensils are expediting the flow of juice, since it's not a malacha d'oraisa. So in summary, we learned today regarding another 6 gzeros to complete and conclude our list of 18 gzeros. We began with the halacha of metaltalin, that bring tumah onto themselves, even if it's only koshu, if a object is hovering above the mace, regardless of its size, it becomes tamei. However, in order to be considered an oil and to transfer tumah to its airspace, in that case it needs to be a roch of tefach, and it has to be a tefach wide. And if part of it is hovering above the mace, in that case it conveys tumah to its airspace, and other mekalim that are underneath the other side of this oil certainly become tamei from the mace. There was a gzera imposed in the case of Adam Hanoisan, a person who was carrying an object which has a circumference, hekev of tefach, like the oive of the mardeya. In that case, we consider the object as though it's a oil, and it conveys full tumah to this person. He becomes an avatumah. The Gemara proceeded with the gzera of boitzer legas huchshar, if one harvests grapes in order to take them to the wine press, and there's some liquid in the baskets which are not considered to be significant. He doesn't need them, they're going to waste anyways. So, min HaTorah, they don't have a din mashke. However, the Rabbanan impose a gzera that they have a chashivas of mashke, and they indeed affect the grapes and make them huchshar lekabel tumah, susceptible to tumah. And we have several reasons for this gzera. We're concerned about kufayt tmeis, baskets which are tamei, and are metame this liquid. In that case, the liquid gets a chashivas, a significance of a mashke, and has the ability to be machsher. We're concerned about kufayt mezufafais, pitch-lined baskets, waterproof baskets, where the juice gets contained therein, and the person indeed wants them, and has significance for him, and therefore in that case, it has a din of mashke. We're concerned about a case where the clusters of grapes are clinging to each other, and he'll go and separate them, and by doing so he squeezes and exudes some juice out of it. In that case, certainly the juice has a din of mashke. And finally, we're concerned about a case where we'll go to test his grapes, and he'll be seichet some of them. The juice that emerges has a din of mashke, and therefore on account of these concerns, the Chacham applied a din mashke to every case. The Gemara proceeded with the 4 final gzeros on our list. Gidulei truma, truma from plants truma. The growth also has a din of truma. This was for concern that a kohen might go ahead and hold on to his truma tmeya till planting season, and it might be nirshal, he might transgress by consuming the truma tmeya. We learned about noisin kisel nachi, one who was on the road at the onset of Shabbos. He meant to pass his pouch over to the guy to carry it for him. We learned about the non-Jewish bread, piton, shamnon, yenon, and bnei sehen, which are asur. And finally, the tinaik nachri has a din of ezav. Now there's some discrepancy between the shites, or Yisir, Tafin, or Meir, how we calculate these 18 gzeros, but all know at the end of the day, all agree that they amount to a total of 18 gzeros, no more, no less. We concluded with a Mishnah which listed a number of disputes between Risham and Hillel. We began with the concept of shvisas kelim. We proceeded with halachas of passing items or passing on work to a non-Jew, and concluded with the halacha of toyen and koris beis habad, that all agree that one may put the beam and the planks onto the grapes and the olives, since they were already ground and crushed on Erev Shabbos. So one may place the beam and the planks on Erev Shabbos, since what is happening on Shabbos is not really a melacha d'oraisa. Therefore all agree that that is permitted.